I'm just going to play this video clip real quick, and then we're going to get off and running.
What? There's a video clip you didn't tell me?
Oh, yeah.
Would you shut up, John? Jesus. You
Yeah,
always
shut
do
the
this.
hell up.
I feel like I'm not even part
We're
of this.
we're trying to be professional as shit right now.
Oh, fuck that.
All right. Can we start now? Can we do things? So I'm going to let this video clip go for about 20 seconds. You guys won't hear it, but it's going to be on the recording. So here we go.
He's just another fighter. No, he ain't just another fighter. This guy is a wrecking machine, and he's hungry. Hell, you ain't been hungry since you won that belt.
Oh, what are you talking about? I've had 10 title defenses.
That was easy.
What do you mean easy?
They was handpicked.
Setups?
Nah, they weren't setups. They was good fighters, but they wasn't killers like this guy.
Welcome to Rage Quit Wire. We got myself, Pete, here with Chris, the Mountain Man, John, and we have the well-oiled machine, Josh White.
Yes, we do.
What's happening?
Yeah, Josh is a wrecking machine.
He is.
He's a killer.
Got those cogs working smooth.
Yeah, so those of you that don't know, we got with us Josh, who's one of the better. I don't know if Josh is comfortable with me calling him the best engineer player in the U.S. of A. But you're definitely very good with those engineers. I've played them once, and you're a pain in the ass with them.
Yeah, I definitely say I'm the best engineer player in my house right now. So
yeah, and you're in a room by yourself, so that's saying a lot.
yeah.
And of course, we got John, our local hunter player.
No storms tonight.
Yeah, so hopefully you'll be able to hang out the whole podcast.
Yeah, if I'm lucky, woo.
We'll see if the rubber bands hold on the modem there for the whole podcast. That'd be nice.
Oh, come on.
So what we're going to talk about today is a couple things. Obviously, we're going to do engineers. That's the last guild in our kind of guild review that Chris and I started way back in October when we did this
Mission
thing.
accomplished.
Accomplishing the mission here.
Yep.
Few podcasts
It's about
have been
setting
able to do.
goals and achieving them.
It is, definitely. So we're going to go ahead and get that taken care of, and we got a good engineer player to kind of show us the ropes. We're going to go ahead and share some news that we've seen with Steamforged last week, and we definitely have some questions that people left us on Gubs and Twitter that we'll go ahead and try to answer them to the best of our ability for whatever that's worth. So, yeah. Before we get started, anything you gents want to share? Just any news, any games, anything you've learned, life-changing events?
I scored a huge set of that Walking Dead All Out War game.
You did, so you got a bunch of that.
Yeah, the game shop here locally, Jacob was like, I just want this gone. I will give you all of that shit for $50. And I looked at it and I was like, ah, man, I don't even know if I'm going to play this or not. Fuck it, let's do it.
It's worth it, why not?
So I got like the original core game and like all these expansions. So now I'm going to rope all of you guys into, you know, all of the local guys at least into a board game night of us playing Walking Dead.
Yeah, I've demoed it before. It's definitely a cool game. So what about you, John? Anything new up in your neck of the woods?
It's rained a lot.
Yeah. Any news on the STC front?
Some things have been ordered. We still only have 2 teams signed up, so what the hell is everybody doing?
Well, I guess
Actually,
it's going to be a pretty tight tournament.
I heard the Asheville crew's scared to put a team together.
That's what I've heard as well.
Or we can't decide on which ringers we want to bring.
Yeah, right? Well, that, and I think the Atlanta guys are trying to figure out who they're pairing up with each other, and maybe everybody's waiting for some money to come in, but yeah, it should still be a good time.
It's looking like Raleigh's going to get about 2 teams together too, and I think we can get 1 or 2 more from Greenville.
Oh, you think you get 2 more from Greenville, huh?
Yeah.
You got to pay because I can't go past 12 teams. We're gonna run out of space. So first come, first serve with money.
Well, Josh has got that
next
A team going on.
Scrubs.
Yeah.
I would say we got our team hopes ruined for the Rage Quit Wire team by John there. So
Yeah, thanks a lot, traitor.
All right, so a couple of news that I'd like to share just real quick before we get into engineers. So there's been a few things kind of popped up on the radar, and one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the Navigators Guild that's coming out. So they've released a couple things. They showed like the event, kit, and they've showed some of the cards that are in that, and they've also released the guild rules, which we'll talk about in a minute. But what were you guys thinking about these navigators with their ability to reroll kicks and reroll attacks, and also this this Horizon guy who can apparently do whatever he wants.
I'll let you guys take these first.
The thing is, are we ever going to come out with like another straightforward kind of team, or is it just Jake from here on out?
Well, I don't know. Supposedly, this guild might be newer player friendly from what I'm hearing from some people. So I don't know if it's
10 or less hit points on half the models. Not newer player friendly.
I mean, that's newer friendly. Your models die, and then you can put them back on the board.
Oh, you get to learn. You get to learn about the icy sponge real quick.
Yeah, you do. I don't know, Josh. What do you think about this Navigators Guild when you first started looking at it?
Yeah, that ability seemed pretty incredible the first time I saw it. But looking at kind of what we can see of their cards, none of them seem to have great stats. I mean, there's almost no momentous results on one on anybody. There's barely any attack above 4. And I believe it was the captain we saw whose kick is like a 2-8.
Yep.
So if that's, indicative of the rest of the guild, then I don't think that mechanic's necessarily going to matter too much. I will be interested to see how heavily they are into football and what differentiates them from fish other than just worse stats, more rerolls.
Yeah, because if you look at Windfinder, which is the card you can mostly see, like they have the reroll mechanic, but you can also see the momentum is mostly on the end of the playbook, and she's
almost the opposite of the Masons.
Yeah, and she's got a low tack because, you get the reroll, but you still might not hit the end of your playbook to get those momentous results. So it's definitely interesting to see. We definitely can see disarm in there, which is always good. They got a couple other things like acrobatics. Something akin to singled out is in there, except for it looks like a ranged ability. So there's a lot of interesting things going to be on this team, but probably the most interesting was we saw this guy, Horizon, who, when you kill him, he's only worth 1 victory point, and he can, when he comes back on, he can also come on your opponent's table edge. So that was really interesting. Just that's something we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, it'll be fun to find out how everyone uses all these models. I think Josh is totally on the money, though. That reroll ability is going to really be mitigated by much weaker numbers on the front end of their playbooks.
Yeah, and for a guy who's been doing all his dice research, it's got to be nice to see a rerollable guild, huh?
Right. Well, for something like that to work, it has to be something where it's actually functional. If you make the stats so weak that you're going to have to be rerolling stuff all the time anyway, then, big deal. So I didn't get too excited too quickly, and I think in the end that reroll mechanic isn't going to be that incredible from the standpoint that they're obviously tweaking the stats to accommodate it.
Yeah, and we can also see the crossover models are going to be Angel and Siren, and I think this is Siren, so that's annoying because I hate Siren so much.
Is she pregnant in that picture?
I don't know.
No way.
I think she's holding maybe a pearl or an orb or something. But
not a pregnant belly?
No, not a pregnant belly. I don't think...
That's not what I heard. That's not what the internet said. It must be true.
I don't think Steamforge wants to, put out the message that pregnancy is okay on a non-married chick.
So it's a morality reason.
Yes.
They're taking a moral stance. Okay.
So they're good, clean company. I don't think they do that.
Okay. That's true. You don't want to bring up the sexuality of the models. I have learned.
Chris has learned that
on the internet
firsthand.
The community will roast you even when you don't say something negative.
Yeah, so something else we saw that they leaked with the Navigators Guild is they also showed guild rules. So Season 4, we don't know what the changes are going to be, but one change we are going to see are guild rules, and they already exist. You can see this with the farmers with the harvest markers. You can see it with the blacksmiths with their master apprentice. Excuse me, with the master apprentice relationship, and the Navigators Guild has the calculation where they can reroll their any number of kicks and attack dice. So they're
not character plays.
So no, it just says attacks and kicks. So I think in season 4 we're going to see guild rules even for the old guilds. So I started thinking about what kind of rules they might put in play for some of the older guilds, and I don't know, like maybe brewers, if you're knocked down, everybody has floored in the guild. That would be something kind of cool to see. So I don't know if you guys were thinking about a guild rule that, could pop up in season 4 for maybe some of our guilds that we currently have.
John,
I'd like to see the hunters do more with forests. That'd be cool.
you want to see what? Sorry, say that again.
See the hunters do more with forests on the field.
Yeah, so that would be kind of cool to see.
Maybe they get some of the bonuses like what Chaska has, where he inherently gets a bonus if he's in a forest.
Like armor.
I'll take it.
Yeah. I mean, stuff like that would make sense. I mean, I don't know what you'd like the butchers to have for their guild rule.
Life drinker on all of them.
Yeah.
I like that.
Or all of them have
card?
crucial artery.
Say again?
Like that guild identity card where they all got life drinker. Screw that.
Yeah, so actually I was thinking about that too, where they might take what they did with the GICs and they might use some of those, or maybe a part of it where they use that as the guild rules. So, they kind of did that as a test thing, and I'm wondering if they did that to test out some of these guild rules they might have rolling out in season 4.
Oh.
I'm wondering that myself. Yeah, it seems a kind of a logical continuation of that thought process.
Yeah, I mean, for engineers, Josh, I could definitely see them doing the one where they basically do snapshots for like one less or momentum, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I could definitely see them doing one of those guild identity cards for all the guilds that currently exist. And it makes sense because technically it's already been tested out, so they know if it's too OP or if it needs to be tweaked, because, I mean, they got basically a free playtest out of it.
That is kind of interesting, which makes me less excited about it because I didn't like the Butcher's Guild identity cards. So, all right, I'm fucked again.
Hey, you got Falconers, though.
I'm excited for those Falconers. We'll see how that goes.
Well, you only got about, what, is it 2-3 weeks for those? I think 3 weeks for Falconers.
Are you guys running events for that?
Yeah, we're going to that tournament in North Georgia at Meeple Madness. John, myself, and Joe are going. You got to sell solar, so I don't think you can go.
I do have to sell some solar.
Yeah, we're going to their Falconer event, and we'll run one probably maybe late June, early July, something like that.
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
That's
What
more
about
on
you
you,
guys?
though.
Do you guys have any events coming up in your neck of the woods for that you want to give a shout out for?
Nothing planned. I was wanting to get an event together in early June, but that's kind of fallen apart. Just my life's gotten in the way a little bit, but I'm hoping to have something before the STC here.
Yeah,
but
get some
nothing
practice
concrete
in.
yet. Yeah.
Cool. Just a couple other side notes, and you guys can speak to whichever one speaks to you. Is we had the Harry fluff come out, so that was a really cool backstory. So spoiler alert, Harry really is dead. So yeah, apparently it's an actor that is now a thespian that's playing the role of Harry, just so the crowd can still cheer for him and still put butts in the seats, pretty much. And it's funny because he's kind of like a drunk thespian that's doing this, so it's pretty entertaining to read. So we had that come out. We also saw that they have these new play mats that are coming out with the farmers have their own custom play mat, and this is by Deep Cut Studios. It's the same company, I think, that put out those rat catcher mats.
Yes.
I think those mats look cool, man.
We used one the other day. Those things are sweet.
They just look cool. I like them.
Yeah, I like the rat catcher mat. I wasn't a huge fan of the farmer's mat. I feel like the detail on it's probably too small to come across.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of tough to see, but the middle section of it is actually like a field.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're standing away from it, you really can't tell what that is.
So it's plowed out in rows?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, in the middle part of the board, it's all plowed and planted. So it's kind of cool. And yeah, besides that, we still got a bunch of Season 4 nonsense that we don't know about yet. So that'll be fun to kind of see as it comes down the pike here.
I'm so excited for that.
Season 4?
Yeah.
A lot of people are kind of nervous about it. They're, when people start having fun in a game, they get a little nervous when rule changes start to be whispered in the community.
Well, I'm less concerned since Jamie came out and said that a lot of the wild speculative comments that were made about season 4 on another podcast weren't on the table. And so I think that I exchange messages with Jamie Perkins every so often. I wouldn't say like we're buddies or anything like that, but every so often we'll shoot each other some messages. And I think that he's just really aware of the fact that the game's in a good place and doesn't want to mess that up. And so I have a feeling that they'll proceed cautiously and they're not going to look to make crazy sweeping changes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm guessing. But he hasn't told me that or anything like that. I'm not trying to drop some inside knowledge or anything like that. I'm just saying that's the impression that I get when I talk to him. He tends to be pretty conservative about the state of the game and not wanting to overreach.
Yeah, so John, any thoughts about season 4 or anything else they dropped in the news lately?
I'll say I'm one of those guys that's worried about it because as a somewhat newer player, season 3 is all that I know, so I really don't want to see change because I feel like I've really got a grasp of it now.
Yeah.
So, and of course, reading all the rumors, half that shit's not true, but it worries me because I don't want to learn. I don't want to relearn shit.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of, I've been gaming for a long time now, and I've seen a lot of additions come and go in various games, and some changes are good, some are bad. As long as
if you don't like the changes in an edition, you will sell all of your models and just be like, I'm out.
What are you talking about?
Don't act like you won't.
That's,
Age of Sigmar guy.
That was Age of Sigmar, totally different.
I feel like that is not even an edition change. That's
a game change.
Its whole category.
Well, and that's what I was just going to say. It's like you do have to be careful, though, because, there are some changes that people will tolerate. But if you just, do dramatic changes, games totally different, people will just pack up and be like, I'm done with this. So Steamforge definitely got to be careful with it. They definitely don't want to, do the old Age of Sigmar trick because, I did sell all my shit.
Turn into an American
I've
football
been playing
game.
this game since season 1, and each edition has been better than the last. I think they've earned the benefit of the doubt for me.
Yeah.
That I'm confident that they will continue to put out a good rule set and a good balanced supply of models.
Yeah, so as we sit here recording in my nerd room, I am looking at these newly sealed engineer models that I've been painting. I've been posting pictures of it on Twitter. I've been really enjoying these models because I'm going to play them for a little bit.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and looking at it, Josh, what is it about engineers that you really love? What is something that you love about the guild? What do you like?
They were the first guild that I started playing, way back in 2015 now.
Okay.
So they're who I cut my teeth on, and every time that sorry about that.
Oh God, are you okay? Sounds like your box has collapsed on you.
Let's pick up. We can edit that out.
So you cut your teeth on them.
Yeah. So every time the edition changed, they've improved, and every time I've moved on to another guild, I found myself missing something that engineers can do, and I keep going back to them.
Okay. So, looking at them, I mean, is it the fluff that you enjoy, or is it just the play style that you just really like?
I think it's more play style. I think the Guild Ball fluff is fine, but I'm definitely a gamer first. It's about what they do on the table that really intrigues me.
Yeah, so we've had a few people say that, engineers kind of are a boring play style. So why don't you kind of just speak to us what the play style is of engineers and kind of why you like playing that way?
I think a lot of people think that because it's easy to get sucked into the trap of playing that ranged attrition ballista game.
Okay.
And I don't feel that that's exciting, and I don't feel that's a viable way to win a lot of games. Engineers can be way more dynamic, way more interesting. A solid 2-2 game, a 3-0 game. You have models like Pinvice that can take out a model, score a goal from anywhere on the pitch, super high burst damage. You have models like Hoist that can travel very far, that have abilities like True Replication to really alter the way they play from turn over turn. And if you're just sitting back lobbing long bombs within 4 inches of ballista, then I don't think you're getting everything out of engineers that you can get.
Yeah, so I think you're talking, and what people think about is the engineer's first turn. So just kind of explain to us what is like, so ballista. What is ballista's ideal first turn for a lot of engineers?
Pretty much any game I drop Ballista in, my first turn consists of Ratchet, tooling up Hoist, and dropping a long bomb on a target. And that is going to be.
Oh, do you
Yeah,
mean do you mean blasted earth, Josh?
yes.
Okay.
Sorry. And that's going to be my target for the rest of the turn. Usually it's, if I kick off, it's the model that retrieves the ball, so they're a little bit further upfield. Or you just kind of have to play a stall game and wait for somebody to get a little bit closer to you. But I mean, the range on Blast Earth is extreme, so your opponent really can't come out of their deployment zone without getting in your range.
Yeah.
So Ratchet tools up Hoist, drops his Blast Earth. Hoist will drop 2 Blast Earths, and then Ballista at the end of the round is going to deadbolt the model and probably second wind to a better position. With Momentous Inspiration, you should be at 4 momentum at this point. So if you've kicked off or received, you are at very worst tied for momentum and have a decent shot at going first.
Okay.
So you really, as a kicking team, you really have a lot more control over turn 2 with engineers as Ballista than a lot of other teams would.
Yeah, because you don't get screwed out of the momentum game. You're still in it, and you're still doing damage to your opponent to set up future turns.
Yeah, it's very easy to get a top of 2 takeout with that lineup. But again, like I said, I think the trap that people fall into is they want to keep doing that turn over turn. And while things like Deadbolt and Blast Earth can slow your opponent down, they're not going to stop them. The ranges aren't good enough. It's too easy to get around, knockdown, or rough ground. Ideally, if you're receiving the ball, you end the round with Ballista on the ball, shooting that target, and then second winding closer to them.
Yeah.
And you're going to go first. You're going to take that model out, and you're going to do a breach goal. And you've started the game on activation 7, 6 points up on your opponent.
Yeah. Now, have you had a chance to mess with the new model Harriet yet, Josh?
I have not. I haven't really played a whole lot since Spring
you've been
Fling.
moving, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a busy month, and just kind of took a couple weeks off after Spring Fling to play some other games. But I definitely need to get Harriet on the table. She, at first glance, seems to bring a lot to the guild, and it's going to be hard to justify not including her in your 6.
Well, I think she helps that gun line style, but she's also just very useful. Like, just the fact that she can hit somebody with her wrench from range with Sucker Punch and the ball scatters automatically is, awesome for close control teams and just scoring teams in general. Plus, Hoist can take Sucker Punch and, deal some damage to other models. And she's so flexible that I've probably played about 4 or 5 games with her now. And I found that she's been just really flexible in helping my team kind of accomplish whatever goal I have. I mean, she scored goals for me. She's gotten the ball off people. She's getting free character plays if she's next to the captain. So she's just a really fun model to kind of have on the team.
Yeah, and never mind the things you can do with Inspiring Hat.
Oh, yeah.
Especially on like a Pinvice Legendary turn, you're just eating momentum.
Yeah, so speak to us about Pinvice. Why do you like her so much? Because I know you love dropping her. And let's just kind of start with, what do you like dropping Pinvice into? Like, what's a good drop for her?
Yeah, so like I said, I started playing Engineers in Season 1, and it's probably no secret to long-term players of the game that Engineers were the worst guild in Season 1. They did not win a tournament anywhere for probably the first year of the game's life. It became kind of a running meme about who can win the first Engineers event. Pinvice came out, and I immediately started putting her on the table just for a change of pace, and she really hasn't changed a lot since then. I've enjoyed her speed, her flexibility, her ability to really put out some burst damage. She does require some setup sometimes, but if you can kind of learn what she's good at, what she can go into, then you can really take people by surprise. You can have some very dynamic, unpredictable activations.
Yeah, I think she's a good dark horse captain, which we've talked about before.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just to give everyone some background for those players that haven't been playing for a while, Ballista, even after Pinvice got released, Ballista went a long time, even into Season 2, without winning any major recorded tournament. So this goes back to the days before Longshanks was around or kept track of any of these things. Ballista had a lot of problems, and Pin Vice very quickly became the answer for all Engineers players. Now Ballista's seen a buff, and that's been fixed, and he's much more viable. But I do think that those early Engineer players will be fond of Pin Vice from the standpoint of the way that she saved the guild in many ways.
Absolutely. I definitely think that Ballista is the better captain now, but I've got so many reps with Pin Vice under my belt. I think that she's just a fun captain to put on the table.
Yeah, so I know she's obviously ideally she likes to receive the ball, but do you drop her when you're kicking the ball, or like I don't know if you do that a lot with her?
I have, yeah. She can be another one of those aggressive kicking models with her 7-inch jog. She's almost at the halfway line when she's kicking, and then with alternator, she threatens 12 inches on top of that. So when she kicks off, there's not really an easily safe place for the ball to go. I tend to drop her into teams that basically I think she has kind of prey. So either low defense or low armor teams, your 3-1s, your 4-0s, where she can really start hitting column 3 and 4 in the playbook without much help. Once she gets into that kind of territory, she's looking at getting takeouts, doing 15 damage in an activation without much, if any, setup. So it really kind of, if you don't have the ball, it gives your captain something very productive that they can be doing.
Well, that's definitely good to hear. Now, last thing that I like kind of before we get into the Q&A that we kind of had off of Gubs, last thing that I want to ask, and you guys can ask something after this if there's something that pops in your mind, is what are probably some models in the guild that you think aren't played as much that maybe you think they should be, or just maybe you think that they're missing something and that's why they're not seeing as much play?
There are 3 models in the guild, I think, that don't get played a lot. Locust, Salvo, and Veteran Velocity. I personally don't play those 3 models very often either. I have seen them on the table from time to time. And I mean, to be honest, I haven't gotten any table time with Salvo in season 3, but I just feel like the other models in the guild do what those 3 models do, but they are better at it, or they have other things they're good at as well. So by putting those on the table, you might be losing additional tools elsewhere.
Yeah. So you're not a fan of the double goalie list that John keeps talking about?
I think it's hilarious.
I don't think I've ever tried it. It's probably got some viability, but it's way more reactive than I like to play Engineers. Yeah. I think you can definitely play a very aggressive game with Engineers, with the amount of tough hide, reanimate, high defense models that you have. You're a little bit more protected from overextending than a lot of other teams would be.
Yeah.
So let me ask this regarding those players. If you see someone drop those players, and I recognize a lot of people listening want the answer to, well, what if somebody does drop it and I have no idea what it does? What are the things that you're considering you should be doing to respond to a drop of Locust or Salvo or Vet Velocity? What are their weaknesses that you would be trying to capitalize on?
Locust, of those 3, is probably the one I really wanted to work the most, so I'll speak to him first. His big weaknesses are his speed. He just cannot keep up with the rest of the guild. And the fact that aside from really that Momentous knockdown on 1, he doesn't offer a whole lot. So you have to understand that any model he gets to is going to get knocked down. And he's a 3-2, 16 boxes reanimate. He's a bit of a pain in the butt to get off the table. But if you can avoid him, and if you can make sure you don't engage him with models that rely on pushes to disengage, he's not really a threat to you.
Okay.
I found with him that I would be knocking 1 or 2 models down a turn, but he did not help me win the game. And when I swapped him back out with, say, Colossus, who also brought Singled Out, who had 2 inches extra of movement, who had that extra inch of melee reach, and was just kind of an all-around more useful player, I don't want to say win rate, my comfort in the game went up.
Okay.
With Salvo, I think Salvo is a perfectly serviceable player, and tetherball is a nice ability to have in your back pocket. But he's just not the all-out striker that Velocity is, and he doesn't have the utility that Hoist has. I think Hoist is a better second striker. Hoist can also do a little bit more damage with the proper setup. He's not quite as fast, but with true replication, he's more maneuverable when Mother's on the table. With Harriet, he can definitely pump out some crazy damage.
Yeah, one thing I didn't like about Salvo is that, one, he's just not a Mechanica. So, especially if I ran him in like a Pin Vice team, there was too many things conflicting because you got to activate Pin Vice and make him a Mechanica before you do this, and it was just annoying when I played him.
Yeah, and I think if you're playing a Ballista Gunline team, Hoist, Ratchet, Harriet is going to fill your needs, and
you run
really
out of influence at that point too.
What's that?
I said you run out of influence at that point too.
Yeah, for sure. Both Harriet and Sabo have free attacks, but even still, you're going to be running short.
Okay.
Okay. What about that last one, Vet Velocity? What do you think about her?
And the reason why the thing I do want to focus a little bit more on her because I feel like Vet Velocity doesn't get a ton of play because Velocity is so good, not because there's anything wrong with Vet Velocity. I just feel like people can only put one on the table, and the original one is the best.
That's probably half of it. But the original Velocity is an incredible model. I also think that Velocity has some shortcomings compared to, say, Compound. If you are going to be playing a goalkeeper, I personally think Rush Keeper is probably better against a lot of teams than goal defenses. Any team that wants to get kind of that 1 goal 4 takeout game, Compound is incredible against because he can just about shut down that 1 goal and provide you maybe an extra turn before lines clash. And so I personally have a hard time justifying bringing them both. And then I also find that Vet Velocity's playbook's just not all that efficient. At TAC 5, she really wants to be hitting column 3 and 4. She has to be spending an influence to get aggressive defense up to really make that happen. And then something like tackle smash shins is great. It's too difficult to be proactive with that and really apply it where you need it to be before it needs to be there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, John, what were you thinking? Because I heard you say you disagreed.
I don't think that velocity is good enough, whether there was another velocity or not. The only thing I like about that velocity is the model. I think the model's really cool, but other than that, even if there was no velocity, why would you ever put her on the field unless you want to be funny with double goalie?
Which you tried to talk me into, you son of a bitch.
Oh, you love Salvo. Shut up.
Actually, you want to know, I'm trying to find a spot for Salvo, mainly because I like the rookie model, and I can see some really cool things I might be able to do with him. So I'm going to play him some more just because I think Salvo might have a spot sometime down the road here.
Mm-hmm. What about Gutter?
So Josh, something else. John scoffed at me when I said this, but I was like, hey, you want to know what? What if I put Gutter into my 10? And, Gutter's pretty solid for a takeout game against squishy teams.
I played with her a little bit. I've typically preferred Decimate or Harry in that Union slot, especially when Harry was broke as hell.
Yeah.
But even after, he's tend to been my Union drop for Inspiring Hat, Goad, Molotov shenanigans against captains like Hammer or Corsair, where I really want to kind of keep them under control.
Yeah.
With Harriet, that's obviously going to change. There's not really a point of having both of them in there. But I tend to like Decimate. I think Second Wind is great in general and in the Engineers team. So especially if you're bringing a Pin Vice, Second Wind on Pin Vice is excellent because it allows her to go in, dodge off on that last attack, generate a ton of momentum, and then get out of dodge and typically be out of engagement range at the end of it.
Yeah, or you can do the legendary goal, go score, dodge out, and then Second Wind away.
Yeah, definitely with the loss of what was that block card?
Knee slider.
Knee slider. I've already forgotten it. Yeah, loss of knee slider really hurts those fast captains that want to get in and out early.
Yeah, the other reason why I really like the idea of taking Decimate over a model like Gutter is I feel like when you're playing the Engineers, you always need scoring to be an option. And Gutter's playbook only has the tackle on 4, and she's lower tack, whereas Decimate gets a momentous tackle on 3, and he's higher tack. So I feel like for the play style of the guild, when you do need to get that ball off and need to turn it into a scoring game, Decimate's going to be a lot more functional that way. And as far as the damage goes, Decimate does a little bit more damage a little bit sooner on 2. So yeah. I really like the idea of taking Decimate. The only thing that I would warn people about is getting themselves into a trap of taking too much 1-inch reach.
And that's why I think some people like Gutter a little bit, because she does throw another 2-inch reach in there.
For sure. Lack of 2-inch reach is a huge problem in Engineers. There are a lot of matchups where maybe Colossus or Compound aren't that useful, and you've basically exhausted your in-guild options at that point. So if an additional 2-inch reach model is something you want on the table, Gutter can definitely do a job. Like Chris said, I think Decimate's damage is a little more consistent, but Gutter will max out at higher damage and bring you that 2-inch reach kind of versatility.
Yeah, and I think if your opponent is bringing a lot of tough hide models, you definitely don't bring Gutter, because Gutter hates tough hide models.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Against something like a Burgers, you're typically looking for either 3 goals or killing Spigot twice.
Yeah, there you go. Or you just kill Spigot 6 times.
Yeah.
All right.
They eventually learn and hide them right behind Esters.
Yeah. So, Josh, before we get to Q&A, there's one more thing I did want to ask you that just popped up in my head is, so if you had to pick your favorite 6-man lineup for Engineers, what would that be?
So for my squatties, I always bring Hoist and Ratchet. I think those 2 are kind of the 2 that make the rest of the guild tick. I love true replication on Hoist, the versatility of his playbook, the fact that he will never die, and if you can bait people into attacking them, you can make them waste an entire turn. Ratchet just brings Ratchet just brings some extra utility. He's a great battery model. He can use Fixer and Overclock in an activation, not spend a single influence. Tooled Up is almost a requirement in guild to really get takeouts, because none of the models are going to top out at high-end damage by themselves.
Yeah.
Velocity has been making most of my lineups for the last year. I went some time without playing her, and then saw the error of my ways and just drop her everywhere. Just having acrobatics in guild answers so many questions that before she couldn't deal with, or the guild in general couldn't deal with. She's a great model to get the ball off of an Obulus, off of a Corsair, get around a Rush Keeper goalie or a Brick, something like that. Again, she's incredibly durable. She's a great kicking model because she can put Nimble up early in the round and you won't feel like you're overextended. I just feel like she brings a lot to the table.
Yeah.
And then that 4th slot is kind of my rotation. Typically it's either Compound or Colossus, unless it's one of those matchups where I really liked Harry. Harriet's gonna slide right into that rotation.
Yeah.
And again, it's gonna take some table time to decide if she really is an every game model or not. That kind of remains to be seen. But Colossus, I would drop into anybody that's not heavily armored. So I don't like him into blacksmiths. I don't like him into masons. And he's hit or miss into some melee teams like butchers, brewers, hunters, where if they can really start picking on him, it's Rhapsody and he'll go down super quick.
Yeah.
But there are a ton of the hunters is a double-edged sword, because he's a 2-inch model against a guild that doesn't have a lot of it. They don't have a lot of armor. They have a hard time getting the ball off of him with his close control. So that's like a fine balancing act, but I tend to like him in that matchup.
Okay, and do you ever bring the cricket?
I did for a while, and I like it in season 3, but man, Mother's just so good.
Yeah.
I can't justify the cricket while those nest tokens are kind of OP like they are.
How often do you score mascot goals?
Never.
You suck.
I'm not one of those. there are a lot of people that can score Mother goals, but I prefer Hoist or Velocity to do it.
I'll take the first turn Mother goal anytime I can.
Yeah, but Hoist can do it too.
Yeah, but then Hoist is over there in the middle of your crap, and you don't have Hoist.
No, you just let him burrow out of there. Yeah. So yeah, and I feel like either captain can really play with that lineup.
Yeah, and I think that's when your guild is really solid. Like when both your captains can run the same amount of players pretty efficiently and do different things because both those captains play very differently.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we got a bunch of questions. I think the first one that I found interesting was we had some fisherman players that were kind of singing the despair of their guild. Apparently, have you seen Lon's flowchart, Josh?
I have. I greatly enjoy Lon's flowchart.
So, do you agree that that's kind of how it plays out when the fish run into engineers?
It can be, yeah. It's definitely an uphill battle for them. Lon actually beat me in our last matchup at Spring Fling. It was a weird game, and I'm sure he'd love to tell you about it sometime, but he definitely deserved that victory.
Yeah, you can read his blog about kind of Spring Fling, and he talks about that matchup, I think, in there.
Yeah, but in general, Corsair is almost a non-starter. He cannot get the takeouts unless your opponent gifts them to him. When I play into Corsair, I'm feeding him Ballista and Hoist all day, and it's 4 rounds, 5 rounds before they get their first points if they don't have the ball. The only difficult thing as an engineer player for that matchup is getting the ball off of Corsair, but I think Harriet 100% makes that problem go away. So I'm not sure Corsair is even an option for fish into engineers anymore.
Yeah, I think and this isn't. I don't have the experience into fish with engineers, but I feel like you got to drop Shark and just try to get your 3 goals and get out of there.
Yeah, keep the pressure up on him. Try not to let Shark die. I think if Shark dies and he's 2 or 3 turns away from the ball, it might be over because the engineers can really get 6 or 8 points in that time.
Okay. So something that I've also found interesting is the last probably 3 or 4 big tournaments that we've seen. Engineers haven't been represented that well. I think at Vengeance there was only a handful of engineers players, maybe 4 or 5, something like that. So why don't you think people are playing engineers as much as other guilds?
I think there's a few reasons there. Part of it might be their residual kind of season 1, season 2 hangover when they weren't considered all that great. So a lot of longtime players kind of never picked them up back then. Model wise, I really hope they get resculpted soon. I would be all over that. I love my engineers, and they have some fantastic models, but they have some stinkers in there too.
Yeah, like the best model in the guild, Hoist.
Best model in the guild, Hoist. Pin Vice, I would love a resculpt. He is missing out on some of the detail that that first wave of models had.
Yep.
Colossus might be the worst model in the range.
He is most certainly the worst model to assemble. Ever.
Yes.
Dude, just make the party rocking Colossus with the one leg up.
Colossus was missing an arm or a leg, so
bad.
Yeah, I like the Locust model. I thought the Locust model was cool.
Locust is a cool model. Vet Velocity is a cool
That's
model.
what Hoist should look like.
Yeah.
That should be Hoist.
Yeah, there's so much they can do with those wooden robots.
And I think they will in those resculpts when their minor guild comes out, so I'm kind of excited for that.
I wish they made them look less human.
Okay, I mean,
right, more like robots,
almost like transforming, mid-transformation.
Sure, I mean the nice thing is you can do that if they're robots, so take advantage of that.
Sure. Yeah, so I think also that a lot of people are, I don't want to say scared of the play style, but do you find that it's hard to do well with engineers that quickly, Josh? Do you think it's a guild that takes a lot of practice to learn how to maneuver?
I think so. Each model kind of has its role, and if you try to use that model outside of its role without knowing what you're doing, you're gonna feel like you're going nowhere. Learning how to get takeouts with engineers is a process. Because you'll get your one dropping long bombs all day, and you'll think that's the way it's gonna happen, and then you'll find that your models are dying before you get the second one. You'll send Hoist in thinking he can do damage, and he can, but he really needs tooled up, overclocked, singled out, some combination thereof to start hitting that upper end of the playbook. And even really the same with your captains, with Ballista, with Pin Vice. They need a little bit of help to really get in there and mix it up and do some damage. So I think a lot of people feel like they can't get takeouts fast enough. They're not quite as dodgy as a fish are, so they're not looked at like a football team as often. But I personally think they are a 3-0 viable team, as any of them are.
Yeah, and John, you've been playing them a hair too. And what are your thoughts, kind of just putting your toes in the Engineers Guild a little bit here?
Well, I love Pin Vice. I mean, the gun line stuff with Blist is fun, but I love the jankiness of Pin Vice and just being everywhere with the ball, kind of all out ball scoring. If she kills somebody along the way, that's why I'm not a good Engineers player, but that's what I think is fun about them.
Well, and something that I don't think Pin Vice does a lot, but is definitely something cool to keep in your back pocket is, I mean, she has the ability to double activate a Mechanica.
Oh, controller's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a game-winning ability. It's not something I use every turn. It's a huge opportunity cost. But if it's a simple way to finish a game with a ridiculously long threat range. Pin Vice gets the ball, sprints, passes. That model dodges. She then controllers that model, maybe alternators that model. That model activates, sprints, shoots, and there's your last goal.
Yeah, I really see it for that last goal where they think they're safe because Pin Vice is out of range, and then you just controller, kick, there's your momentum, go run, score the goal.
Yeah, I believe I finished a game off at Vengeance or at Spring Frame that way. She came back on the table from my corner, and I moved the ball 24 inches and scored on the first activation of the turn.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things where, like I said, I think it's kind of like the Hunters were, and John, you know all about this, where it just takes practice and figuring out how the guild kind of plays out and how it's used.
They're one of those teams where spacing's a big deal, like the Hunters.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're outside of your walk plus buff ranges, if hoist isn't near the mother tokens, if you're not close enough to do your passes, it can get away from you pretty quickly.
Okay, so an interesting question, and this is from Ben Neitzel, I guess. He said, so he's just starting Engineers, so what do you think is a good kind of newer player-friendly starting 6 for Engineers?
Go with Ballista, Mother, Hoist Velocity, Colossus, Ratchet. You'll kind of learn a little bit of everything they do. That's a team that can play a little football. You can mix it up a little bit in melee, and you can play the gun line. So you can really get a taste of all three things that Engineers can do. And it's gonna introduce you to those core concepts of Engineers, like true replication, burrow combo, or activation order issues where you're tooling up fixing with Ratchet before your Mechanica models go. And it's going to give you access to velocity, so you can both learn how to score goals from everywhere and how to kill the ball effectively.
Yeah. Now, I've heard Chris say this before, where Chris has been like, the Engineers are boring as shit. So, Chris, why do you think the Engineers are so boring?
No, he's already addressed this. And so I have to give Josh credit. I can't stand when somebody wants to play this game of, I'm just going to beat you on clock and I'm going to just kill the ball the entire game and get my activations more quickly and then just draw it out forever, because there's not interaction there. There's not interaction for both players. It creates a negative gameplay experience, and basically it's just this test of willpower on whether or not you, as the one executing that strategy, can stand the boredom of that playstyle. And Josh doesn't do that. So I feel like he's answered this, but what are your thoughts when you hear people talk about that, Josh, in general?
Yeah, like I think I mentioned earlier, I think people are just not playing them to their full potential if they think they're boring. You have a ton of dodges in the faction. You have a ton of push dodges. You have some really unexpected results that
unexpected arrival.
Like unexpected arrival.
I knew that was
So
coming.
unexpected.
I just knew your corny ass was going to do that.
So, fun story. I was playing Chris the other day, and Colossus had the ball with 2 people on him. And I was just going to pass the ball into space to try and get my last goal to win the game. And I swung on missed with Colossus, and I got like 4 hits to get unexpected arrival.
Fucking bullshit.
And pushed him off, jogged into range, and kicked the game-winning goal.
No, let's also put this in perspective. got 4 hits, even though he was being crowded out by another model as well.
Pretty sweet.
It was
so good.
Put that in your dice research.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
It's that mad skill. You can't replicate that.
No, unless you're hoist.
frustrating
So
as shit.
Oh, Jesus. I knew that shit was coming to you so
you
bad.
can see him coming from a mile away.
Alley-oop.
Josh just setting him up.
Jesus, so terrible.
And I think a lot of people do that, and probably the coolest thing I've seen Josh do is his kickoff and kind of what he does with Ballista is pretty cool. Is I've seen him like get the ball with Ballista on his turn 1, do all his momentum and stuff, knock somebody down. Turn 2, he goes kill the model that was knocked down. Legendary for a 10-inch goal and second wind away into safety. And I'm like, dude, that's so fucking cool. Just to see Ballista ball like that.
That's some really good tech. So this kind of brings up something else, and I'm not sure. Are you done with the Facebook questions?
There's a few in there, but
Okay,
sure.
you finished the Facebook questions, and then I want to ask him one thing at the end.
All right, so I think let me just kind of make sure that we didn't miss any here. All right, so this is another new player engineer question, which is, I'm fine with. And this will be actually the last one because I think most of the other ones we've already touched on at least a little bit. And this is from Corey Dawson. So he wants to understand the first turn strategies, which we already talked about. But I think the biggest thing he asked is, what does an engineer player want to avoid, especially in that first turn?
Yeah, so this actually is going to go right into my question, so I'll ask it, and you can think about this. I guess what I wanted to kind of end with is you giving us some thoughts on like an always and never dichotomy. Like, what are things that when you're teaching a new player or you're seeing new players do or use the engineers, always do this if you want to be successful, and then what are the things that never do this? Like, what the fuck were you thinking? That's going to screw you every time type of things. Like, if you can give us your thoughts on that kind of comparison.
Yeah. So I'll touch on kind of that first turn thing first. Yeah, I think we've kind of spoken on what I like to do proactively on first turn. I think you definitely need to. It's good advice for Guild Ball in general, but be mindful of where you're placing your models on turn 1. Don't give up anything too easily, especially against teams like Corsairfish or Morticians that can really drag you out of position easily. Because especially if you're bringing Ballista, you want to control that momentum. And even Pinvice, if you're kicking off with her, she can out-threat any other model in the game. So you can really control the momentum on turn 1, regardless of which captain you're bringing. So don't let your opponent take that away from you. You also don't want to spread your damage out as an engineer. You don't have that many sources of burst damage activations in guilds. So you want to make sure you are picking the right targets, which means non-tough-hide models with probably 16 or fewer boxes. And if they're a 3-1 or a 4-0, all the better. Models that take some of the variability away from playbook results and damage. For your always and never question, Chris, let me think about that. I would say, again, another good just advice for playing Guild Ball is learn how to take care of the ball. Don't give it up cheaply. If you're going to drop it on the ground, make sure it's behind your models. It's somewhere that you have multiple models that can access it and get it away in a single activation. If you're going to hold on to the ball with a Pinvice or velocity, put them in cover, put them out of range of most of your opponent's models. Kick the ball into space when you can. You're fast. You've got Colossus. You've got Pinvice. You've got Velocity. You've got models that can really go out there and pick it up and score quickly. So the ball is your friend as an engineer because you can score in 2 activations once you touch it from anywhere on the field.
Okay, that's awesome.
All right, yeah. So just any other just last minute advice or thoughts that you have, Josh, on the Engineers Guild? Just because you've been really successful with them, so we definitely will take what you say a lot more. It'll be a lot more valuable than if we say it.
Yeah, I just love playing them, man. I think they're a ton of fun. I think that you can really play a couple of different play styles with them easily. And I do think we're going to start seeing them show up in the competitive scene a little bit more. I've noticed that, Alex Botts has picked them up. Pete, you've picked them up. I think people are going to start taking notice of how they play, and they're going to start learning them. And if they're patient and they're willing to really learn those models and learn how those interactions work, we'll see a lot more of them.
Yeah,
Well, that leads to another option. If people do start picking them up, what's the counter to them?
I don't want to give away my vulnerabilities now. No,
I mean, is there one guild that you don't like, that you like to see the least across from you?
Josh and I were talking about a guild that I've been frustrated over.
Union, man. Union is a tough matchup. Vet Rage is a tough matchup specifically.
Anytime people want to get in your face and brawl with you is probably not their play style.
Well,
Yeah,
that matchup is going to remain tough because the problem with Vet Rage is how do you tweak him or take something away without then making him really, really weak? I don't know how you would do it because you can't any of his abilities you can't take him away, otherwise he'll be losing most games.
And
That'd be fun if Benediction just went away.
I was going to say, I think my issues with him started when Benediction dropped. We've had a Union player, steady, good Union player here for a while, and I really started noticing myself struggling with him and getting frustrated with him after Benediction came out.
Well, yeah, think about it. It's hard to peel the ball off of Benediction when he's got his extra armor up in cover.
Right, he's an easy access for Red Fury to go halfway across the board. He's good at getting bloody coin bonuses, and he brings a lot of utility to that team that Rage takes full advantage of.
Yeah, I've also seen some people mention that hunters can also be a problem for engineers just because of how mobile the hunters are and how they can kind of pick you apart a little bit here and there. So have you had a lot of problems with the hunters?
I've mostly had success into hunters, and I've had a lot of games in them because look at any Southeast tournament in the last 6 months. But no, I got pretty thoroughly spanked at Spring Fling by a very good hunters player who played them in a way I hadn't really seen them play before, and it made me start thinking about it. Just getting into my face threw me off my game. He made sure that the game was played on my half of the table the entire time, so I never got close to his goal. I really never got close to getting a takeout. I like I said, I got absolutely destroyed by him, and it kind of made me reevaluate that entire matchup.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're really good at, John, is like when there's a scatter team like engineers that want to, kind of keep away from you, you're really good at getting in their face and picking them apart.
Surprise, here's a bear.
Deal with it.
Yeah, John's bear always gives me issues when we play.
I just love it because I hear people talk about the hunters and they're like, oh, the bear's trash. They don't even make my 10. And I'm like, man, John loves his bear.
I have a hard time sitting the bear versus anybody.
I know. I love it when John brings his bear against me.
I'm bringing the bear and whipping your ass with him next time.
Okay, please.
I want to see it.
I'm gonna bear hug fillet.
I'm gonna farm it.
Oh,
I'm gonna farm that thing like
it's like
crazy.
that's like the hunter's wet dream.
No, I think the engineers have a lot of the same problems I do. Like I have a hard time with tough hide. They kind of have a hard time with tough hide because they don't have that high damage output. They don't want to get in that big scrum in the middle. They're kind of a similar team. A little bit of control, a little bit of range.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Brewers matchup is a weird one.
And it just got a lot harder.
It just got a lot harder. Prior, you could. The game was slow enough for the Brewers that you could typically outrace them, but Decimate definitely cranks them up a notch.
Yeah, she changes the game a little bit with Brewers.
Yeah.
So, which a bunch of people have already bitched on other podcasts, so I'm not going to go into that Decimate.
Yeah, I just need more experience against her. I haven't made an assessment.
She's
yet.
good. She is good.
Yeah, I really can't speak to the Exiles in general yet, just because I haven't been playing since they've come out.
Josh, you got to get the Exiles down because that other box is going to hit soon as well, and then you'll have 6 other models you got to deal with.
Yeah, go back into the time chamber soon.
Get your training, get the dojo fired back up.
Yeah, we're going full montage soon.
Speaking of the dojo, I know you must have an awesome rage quit story for us.
Oh man,
Because
Probably-
those guys down there, you guys have so much personality that I know that people must get like on these roller coaster rides of emotion.
Dude, as many times as I've been down there, though, Josh is the one guy I haven't seen pissed off ever.
Oh, well, I don't necessarily think it's
I would
you.
say
You could
I
have just
don't.
experienced.
I have seen like I've played against Josh and I've like seen him play games and Josh is pretty, he is a well-oiled machine. Like he's just kind of going through his turn, doing his thing. I don't see you get flustered too much there, Josh.
I remember coming out,
There's one guy here.
to the band at Spring Fling when he got his ass whipped. He was still the same. There's no change.
Oh no, I got a little hammered after that game.
Then there was a change.
Yeah, I've dropped rat catchers into Mike a few times the past month after Spring Fling, and they got me a little flustered. I don't get that team at all.
Yeah. Well, talk to Chris Schlegel because apparently he gets it.
Oh yeah,
The one guy, everyone else like plays them and sells their models.
Actually, I mean, there's the what's that guy's name in Germany that he placed fourth at Vengeance with him. I can't remember his name. It was it Tim?
Wisniewski.
Yeah, I think that might have been it. I might be getting it wrong, but he rocked it. And I think my favorite thing that he said is he's like, all you people that said rat catchers are trash, I placed really well with them, and I'm just gonna get better with them, and I'm gonna fuck you up. He didn't say it in those exact words, but that's what I took from it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's something there, but I'm just not saying it.
Well, and I think that's important that when you're looking for a guild to play, that you do need to find that guild that fits your style. Because I tried rat catchers, I've tried some other guilds, and I played Morts, and I'm like, man, I don't even know how these Morts are doing it, but some people make it work, and God bless them.
That's the team I don't get. Screw them.
They're my funsies guild. I pull them out when I'm teaching new players or I just want to change a pace.
Yeah, and then people like Jesse from down here in the South, he can just stomp people with him, and I'm just like, man, I don't get how you do this.
He's so effortless doing it too.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else you guys want to put out? Anything else you guys need to share before we wrap this episode up?
No, I think I've said all my piece.
What about you, John? Anything you want to add, share?
If you haven't signed up for STC, you better do it now because I'm sure it's just going to like another team's going to sign up and then it's just going to start filling up real quick.
It is. It for sure is.
By the way, congratulations on your win at the annual kickball game against the seniors at your school.
That's all I do is win.
Don't act like you're not impressed.
I don't even know what that said, but it was probably nonsense.
Yeah, probably.
All right. Well, with that being said, guys, I think we're just gonna roll some dice and throw some salt, and we'll catch you all next time.
I guess thanks for having me on.
There he is. Josh, can you do that without? Can you just do that?
I think my wife is asleep in the next room.
All right. We won't have you do it then.
I'll let John record me doing that one night.